Oh, I don't see the light anymore. Oh, there we go. Okay, then. I would like to call this meeting to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Becker?
Here.
Mr. Sizemore?
Here.
Mr. Cummings?
Here.
Ms. Gloss?
Here.
Mrs. Herrick?
Here.
Mr. Hong?
Here.
Mrs. Reese? Mr. Winston?
Here.
President Lax.
Here. We have a quorum. Please rise to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the rights of the public to advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies in which any business affecting their interests is discussed and acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the East Brunswick Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Board of Education offices. Written notice was also provided to the Sentinel, the Newark Star Ledger, the Home News Tribune, the Alternate Press of East Brunswick, and the Municipal Clerk of East Brunswick. All Board of Education meetings, with the exception of executive session discussions, are videotaped for later broadcast. It is the policy of the Board of Education that videotape meetings are not edited for any purpose. Individuals who speak at the board's public meeting should be aware of these videotaping rules. Good evening, and as we so often do, I'm going to ask right away for a motion, whereas the Board of Education must discuss matters which are not appropriate for discussion in a public meeting, and these subjects are within the exceptions to the Open Public Meetings Act and are permitted to be discussed in closed session. The Board of Education intends to discuss matters as follows, those items listed on tonight's agenda. The length of closed session is estimated to be 1 hour, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene and action will be taken. Now therefore be it resolved that the East Brunswick Board of Education will recess into closed session for only the aforesaid subjects, and be it further resolved that the East Brunswick Board of Education hereby declares that its discussions of the aforesaid subjects will be made public at a time when the public's interest in disclosure is greater than any privacy or governmental interest being protected from disclosure in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Moved by Mrs. Becker. Second by Mr. Cummings. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Again? Abstentions? Motion carries. We shall see you in an hour. And we're back. Welcome to our happy crowd. Everyone's getting ready for the snow. I hope everyone hit the supermarkets early. We will try not to have you out of here too late. But what you've all been waiting for, Dr. Valesky, would you like to start off with your report this evening?
Thank you, President Lax, and I apologize. This is going to be a long report tonight, but bear with me. You know, I wished it was always sunny in East Brunswick, but just a reminder that tomorrow, Friday, January 19th, we will be closed for inclement weather, and we have a storm that's coming in. So I want everyone to be safe. I just want to remind the community that on our calendar, if we used one snow day, and by tomorrow we will use 2, we will have to return to school. We will not have February 19th, President's Day off. That will be a school day as a result of our 2 snow days that we've had during this month. The high school student council is thrilled to share they were honored with 2 awards at the 98th Annual NJASC Convention. Second-year honor school and top 10 project. Our own Chris O. accepted the top 10 project award. And I'm surprised he didn't bring it with him tonight. On Thursday, January 11th, the East Brunswick High School choral program held their annual winter concert. Performances included selections sung by the tenor bass choir, a cappellas, jazz choir, bella voce, concert choir, and full chorus groups. The decades-long tradition of performing the Hallelujah Chorus included the EB Choir students, EB Chamber Orchestra students, and any EB alumni that wanted to join on stage. And that was the culminating performance of this wonderful evening of music. So we actually have a video piece to share with you. The next morning, on January 12th, was the EB Chorus Day. This event consisted of over 700 students representing grades 3 through 12. The students gathered together in the JM Pack at Hammersholt Upper Elementary School. They took part in singing workshops with the EB choral teachers to encourage them to keep singing in chorus next year. And during the workshops, they quickly learned the song, Bansa Alba, a traditional Zambian folk song, and performed it together as a full group to culminate the event. So we have a little piece for that. And before it starts, if you pay attention, the two young ladies in the right front down below, they're very entertaining. They did a nice job. And our staff does a great job with that, too.
Excellent job.
In sports, Angelique Carterucci was our female athletic representative at Rutgers University Jersey Mike's Arena for the SIAA National Girls and Women's Day in Sports. Angelique was captain on our gymnastics team. She is leader in our athletic program as well as in the classroom. She will be attending St. Leo on a dance and acro scholarship this fall. Girls wrestling took the runner-up trophy at the Girls GMC Wrestling Tournament on Monday, January 15th. And I will use the last portion of my superintendent's report to talk about East Brunswick Public Schools' support for students. Our general approach to counseling students through global tragedies is to handle matters on a case-by-case basis rather than on a large platform. We have found that students often do not feel comfortable or willing to express their emotions and challenges in a larger format with other students, especially while their emotions are fresh. Throughout the year, not only following a tragedy, the counseling department operates through a multicultural lens, which encourages students to express pride in their cultural identities, encourages students to work collaboratively to create awareness within their schools of their cultural backgrounds, and teaches acceptance of cultural differences. In previous years, we've accomplished this through field trips to elementary schools promoting expressions of cultures, a Project Unity event in June of each year at Churchill, multicultural night events, and individualized support for our multi-language learners, including individualized classroom lessons and resources. In East Brunswick Public Schools, we are committed to fostering an inclusive and supportive learning environment for all students, including those with diverse backgrounds and experiences. Recognizing the unique challenges faced by our students, we have implemented various support mechanisms to ensure their academic success as well as their social and emotional well-being. It is essential to highlight that our commitment to inclusivity extends to all students regardless of their backgrounds. Our goal is to create a nurturing atmosphere that addresses the needs of all students, promoting unity and understanding within our educational community. All students are provided with confidential, individual supportive counseling as needed. The focus of counseling support is centered around holding space for students to process and articulate emotions and challenges they are experiencing related to their cultural experiences. Counselors at Hammersholt Upper Elementary School are running a multicultural support group for students interested in better understanding and celebrating their cultural identity. Support groups are open to all interested students. Counselors at Churchill Junior High School run a non-paid after-school club entitled International Cultures Club, also known as ICC, which provides a platform for students of all cultures to join and attend after school to express and celebrate individual identities and share cultural norms and traditions. This platform is utilized for students to express themselves and share experiences through their cultural lens. Shortly following the events of October 7th, students shared the challenges they were facing during an ICC meeting. Students expressed fear for their families and loved ones, as well as disheartenment for the violence that was taking place. Students were encouraged to engage in support provided by their counselors in addition to the shared support from other students in ICC. Counselors also spearhead the diversity subcommittee of the safety and climate team at Hammersholt Upper Elementary School. Opportunities are provided to students to discuss differences. Students are encouraged to respect each other's viewpoints and display compassion for one another despite any disagreement. Assisting students who have been exposed to graphic images shared on social media from a war can be challenging, as such experiences may evoke strong emotions and distress. And related to that, I want to share our action plan to support those students. First is create a safe environment. We ensure the classroom is a space that is safe and supportive. We let students know it's okay to feel a range of emotions and that their reactions are valid. We acknowledge their feelings, and we do that without judgment. We allow them to express themselves and share their thoughts and emotions. We avoid minimizing or dismissing their reactions. Provide information. Our objective is to offer accurate and age-appropriate information. Encourage communication. We encourage open communication. We want students to know they can talk with or seek support from counselors and staff if needed. As previously stated, we create opportunities for group discussions, allowing students to share their perspectives and feelings with each other. Offer of support services. We make sure students are aware of support services within their schools, such as counseling service or mental health professionals. Establish boundaries. We are mindful of the potential for re-traumatization. We establish clear boundaries for discussions and activities. Monitoring student well-being. We keep an eye on the well-being of students over time, and we look for persistent signs of distress and consider involving mental health professionals for more targeted support. Involving parents. We strive to keep parents informed about what has been discussed in class and any potential triggers. And we are committed to collaborate with families to provide additional support at home. A solid parent and school partnership is critical in building and supporting our safe and inclusive environment for all students. And we know from experience that each student is unique and responses to traumatic experiences can vary widely. Being compassionate, understanding, and providing a supportive environment are key elements in helping students cope with graphic images from a conflict. These protocols apply to any events, whether local, national, or global. And our school administrators, as well as our school counselors, are always available to answer parental questions and concerns.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated. Okay, we have a few presentations and reports this evening, starting with the resolution of appreciation for School Board Recognition Month.
That's me. If I can go up here and I'll enlist my. Resolution of Appreciation, School Board Recognition Month in New Jersey for January 2024. Whereas the New Jersey School Boards Association has declared January 2024 to be School Boards Recognition Month, a time that all residents might acknowledge the contributions made by our local school board members. And whereas the East Brunswick Board of Education is one of more than 581 local school boards in New Jersey that sets policies and oversees operations for public school districts. And whereas the East Brunswick Board of Education embraces for all students the goals reflected in the district motto of excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts. And whereas the East Brunswick Board of Education helps to determine community goals for the education of approximately 8,400 students in preschool through 12th grade. And whereas the East Brunswick Board of Education members receive no compensation for their services, yet are committed and active advocates for public school students, and as board members collectively work with administrators, teachers, and parents for the good of the East Brunswick Public School District and public education in general. And whereas the East Brunswick Board of Education provides accountability to the public, communicates the needs of the school district to the public, and conveys to school administrator the public's expectations for the schools. And whereas the East Brunswick Board of Education can take pride in its schools, which rank among the best in New Jersey, and nationally in indicators such as high school graduation rates, class size, college entrance exams, participation, and advanced placement offerings and test scores. Now, therefore, it be resolved that we join communities statewide in observing January 2024 as School Board Recognition Month and express our gratitude and appreciation to Lori Lax, Heather Guas, Vicki Becker, Timothy Cummings, Mark Sismar, Lori Herrick, Lee Woo Hung, Barbara Reese, and Jeffrey Winston, collectively, the East Brunswick Board of Education, for their unwavering service to the students, staff, and greater East Brunswick community. Thank you for all of your service.
I was told you're doing the AI presentation as well?
I'm sorry.
Oh, Herb, oh, that's well,
Do you want me to do the AI presentation now?
that makes more sense when you pointed. Sorry.
Are we skipping the ethics?
We're going to move that to the next meeting.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to have Dr. Herbert Paluzzo with us this evening. Herb is our Supervisor of Educational Technology, and he has been working with stakeholders throughout the district in working groups to draft some guidance for staff and students on the use of AI in and out of the classroom, and he's here to share that work with all of us this evening. Herb.
Good evening. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I have at least one microphone situation. So like Dr. Boley said, it's been starting in September when I took the job as Supervisor of Educational Technology, and even before that, as you're going to see in some of the aspects of the presentation, it's been a busy 5 months. And generative AI, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and you're going to see that there's a lot of AI and ed tech terms that are up there, and there's more AI terms that I didn't include because then we would we run out of space on the slides there. But the big thing that we're talking about with regards when we say AI is generative AI and LLMs, or large language models. So when I say AI in this presentation, I really mean generative AI. And the big proponent or the big catalyst for the use of AI that's been very disruptive but also very exciting has been ChatGPT. So my background as a history person prior to being Supervisor of Ed Tech, I think it's important to look back as we also look forward. So ChatGPT launched only not that long ago, November of 2022. And really, for years, it had been operating in a closed situation. So that the folks at OpenAI who created ChatGPT were operating it for years in a closed environment, using it for different internal tasks. And they kind of decided in November of 2022, if we open this up the same way that Google operates, where anybody can do any kind of search at any point, we wonder what would happen. And that's really the plan that they executed. And disrupt it did pretty much immediately. So very, very soon after that, the impact on schools was immediate. The concerns about academic integrity violations from a teacher's perspective, how's this going to change the work that we do, the assessments that we give? How are we going to make sure that we're still laying those foundational principles and skills that students need to have to be successful in the world, while also recognizing we have to embrace new technologies like this? And so very much immediately it became a disruptor. And one of my things that I always say is that wherever there's challenges, there's always opportunities. And this is one of those pieces. I think a lot of technology has been disruptive over the years. I'm sure the wheel was disruptive when it was first invented, but nobody regrets that for sure, right? And I think that we talk about the internet and even social media presents a lot of challenges, but it also presents opportunities to connect people. So AI is another one of those pieces of that. So almost immediately, I started thinking about this in my prior role as department chair for social studies. It's like, okay, let's not freak out. Let's calm down. Let's see what the challenges are. Let's see how students start interacting with this and see what we need to do. And what we decided to do right as research season was either commencing or kind of wrapping up in the social studies department, right about the end of April, early May is when Turnitin.com launched an AI detection tool. And most of the news coming out of Turnitin, we've been working with Turnitin for years to, they give you like a plagiarism, what percentage they think a paper's plagiarized. Some of that information is you have to look a little more closely. If it's marking quotations, that's okay. But they talked about an AI detection tool, and most folks thought, they thought we were talking about the launch in the fall of next year. Well, they launched it in April and May, and our teachers were going through the process and said, well, this is an interesting thing, and what do we do with this number? It's giving us a percentage, but it doesn't always look clear. Some of the things they're marking look like sentences that anybody would write. So I sat down with Dan Moran, and we drafted initial version of guidance that we decided we could pilot at the high school, and we would see, okay, let's see what is effective about this guidance. Let's see how it assists teachers, and let's see what further questions we have. We developed this knowing it wasn't going to solve everything, but we needed a place to start from. And it really was insightful. It helped us, I think, have some of those conversations with students and be honest about it. And I remember, us talking about it and with Dr. Boley saying, this is something that I think, we should look at and start to have broader conversations outside of just social studies and look at it from a secondary perspective. With the creation of this position, I was happy to apply and kind of set forth my vision of, I think this is how we have to do it. I think we have to look at it from a K-12 perspective. We have to develop working groups, and I think we need to start the year with some guidance in place that everybody can use at Churchill and the high school. So I had a small group of teachers from Churchill and the high school who were working on some topics in our Canvas learning management system, and we quickly pivoted to the AI piece, and that's the guidance that was distributed to staff and to students in September at the start of the year. So it's hard to see on here, but if you go to ebnet.org/edtech, you can view these guidance documents, and also students and staff got these documents, and they've been distributed since the start of the year. But these are the examples here of the guidance for teachers and the guidance for students. The idea was to have one page of guidance for each. We did not want a manual. We didn't want a situation where it had to be overly analyzed. We wanted, once again, to take the next step in this larger conversation, continue to collect data about what we need, the questions that we needed to have answered further, their feedback. We wanted to talk to students and get their perspective, but we didn't want to start the year without some semblance of a plan in place and something that we could continue to move the conversation forward. And I think it's worked out well, everything from how to cite the use of generative AI and how to have those conversations with our students. So a little bit about the AI working groups. So the purpose of these working groups is really to, my goal was to create a culture of collaboration and transparency about AI. I felt it was a big, very important piece of this, that the staff, K-12, know that when you come to the table, I'm not looking for people who are experts, because there are no super solid experts of AI. There are people that are continuing to learn and ask the right questions. But I wanted people who came to the table curious, who were smart, who were the right amount of optimistic and the right amount of skeptical, because I think that that's an important, when you're trying to have a conversation and you're trying to find solutions, we need to bring people to the table who are interested in moving the ball forward but have good questions. So that's been the goal from the very start, was to have that culture of collaboration and transparency. One of the things that we talked about was that we would be vetting AI and ed tech tools for staff and students. That's something that we have begun to do, with an eye on developing those PD opportunities for teachers, but also across the board for support staff, for administrators. Everybody needs to be trained on how to use these tools effectively to make sure we're working smarter. I feel like everyone in this district works very hard every day, and we could always find opportunities and areas to work smarter. Along with that, there's also areas where we need subject-specific curriculum revisions and supports. There's going to be areas where there's overarching. Every department, everybody can work together and use these tools effectively. But there are going to be some difficult conversations about what this looks like in curriculum, how it affects assessment, how it affects certain learning opportunities, how we can support different types of learners that we have in the district. So those are some conversations that we need to talk about as a team, and then also refocus as individual departments. We need to set some foundational principles about getting student and parent voice and training for them as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then the idea that we would update these guidance documents for teachers and students for the 2024-2025 school year. The groups are very diverse as far as the makeup. All departments are represented, and including the counseling department. And initially, I got some of the counselors who said, "I'll do it," but I'm just curious why do you want counselors involved in this? And one of the things I said to them was, well, if the students are using AI for all kinds of things inside of school and outside of school, I think it's important that you all know what's going on and what the potential is, and think of some of the things that students are doing with social media that we like and that we're not real big fans of. I think we need to make sure that we're thinking about that with regards to AI as well. And they were like, "Oh, well, thanks for inviting us." And I said, "Yeah, no, I want everybody there. I want to make sure we're not missing anything. We don't leave no stone unturned." We started doing AI and ed tech info sessions for all staff and students. That we've done those at Central, and I was at Lawrence Brook today. We had a huge schedule for yesterday, but we decided to move that to next week. We didn't want to have a shortened day to not include anyone who wanted to stop by to get that increased voice, but it starts with the working group, and now we're starting to expand those conversations as well. Student feedback, which I'm going to share a couple slides on student feedback as well with everyone. We were able to survey students at Churchill and the high school in September, October of this year, and get their early perspective, and the plan is to continue those conversations with the Hammersholt and the K-4 students more in focus groups or small interviews. We feel like that's a more appropriate setting for our K-6 population, but we want to make sure we're talking to them and finding out what they know and what supports that they're going to need as well. And we also met with students. I also met with students during the principals council meeting in October, November, and Mr. Hannes has shown an interest in doing the same thing with the Churchill students in the second semester, and I'm hoping to meet with the students at the high school second semester. I had a good meeting with Mr. Pazinko, and he was on board with making sure we do that in the second semester to continue those conversations and to make sure we bring more student voice to the table. So when we were asking students for their input, I put together these QR codes because that's, QR codes are an easy way. You put your phone right up there and you can get feedback. And we also sent links out through the Canvas course page as well. And these are some of the responses that might be hard to see on the screen, but the Churchill responses. And we got just under 100 responses from each school, which I thought was pretty good. And everything from "it's cool" to I feel like ed tech and AI are properly used to variation. I think a human being should be teaching, not AI, which I totally agree with, and that is we are 100% in agreement on that. But also, I think it could help with notes and how to get info on things that we don't know. There are some concerns about cheating, and that's one of the things that we've heard from students is some of them have been a little hesitant to use it because they don't want to be accused of academic integrity. So everything from, hey, we should be using it, to some reservations about that as well. At the high school, similar feedback. I think that the high school students that I've had the chance to speak with in person were happy to have some of that initial guidance, and that they appreciated that we're making the effort to not ban it outright. That's one of the things that are really important in that guidance, is that outright ban is not the way we want to go. That's not a way that we have a productive conversation and also embrace the realities of what's going on in the world. So some of the students here, you'll see that when we leave school, we can use whatever technology we want. And so school should be teaching us how to use those technologies, which I think is great. I feel AI can be a great tool if it's used right. I think that's a critical and important, consistent theme that I saw throughout the feedback, was that, what are the rules? Where's can we be more clear about what the expectations are, and a consistent message? And so my message to students has been, I promise you we're working on it. We need to have more information so that we can do that properly. And as the technology evolves, we need to create systems that allow for that. So I'm very proud of the feedback, the participation, and the work so far, and we're going to continue to do going forward. So a little bit about the goals for the remainder of 2024. Like I said before, the revision of the 7 to 12 staff and student guidelines and best practices documents, I think, are critical. The technology just in the last 5 months continues to evolve and change. There are new tools that are coming out all the time. And the important thing is a lot of conversations I've had with Nick Latronica and Clifford Raymond in our IT department about making sure that we don't fall in love with any one program at this point because of privacy policy concerns. Also, fear that if everybody kind of goes all in on a product and it's not fully, their foundation as a business isn't fully laid, then it could be something that we have to pull back on. And that's not something that we want, because that could be disruptive to learning and teacher preparation for those things. So those are all the considerations that we've been making, and like I said, bringing all stakeholders and leaders to the table. We have talked about creating K-4 and 5-6 staff guidelines for AI. We've actually started that process at Hammersholt. We've had some discussions about some things that could be happening there, where we want to make sure that we're educating students preemptively about academic integrity, but also the use of AI properly. Students are finding these resources and using them very effectively in some cases, and other times not so much, and we have to make sure that we're teaching them about that. So we are working in a similar model to what I did last year and what we started at the high school last spring. We're preparing for a similar process at Hammersholt this spring, where we would pilot some guidance with the staff. We would have similar guidance for the students as well. And we're really excited about crafting that guidance. We're working on that with the working groups, and we're going to be meeting on Tuesday to talk about that further. The PD plan. So that's a huge piece of this, and I think that in all of our administrator meetings there's excitement and a lot of questions about some different tools and some suggestions that I've made about how we can use generative AI to work smarter and more effectively and think about different issues that we're facing. So that's one of the other phases I've been working with the curriculum team on is, okay, what aspects of PD are overarching that are going to be K-12, all teachers? We can have a summer PD session where all teachers, no matter the subject or grade level, could really benefit from this. And what are some PD opportunities where it's very subject specific, where this is a specific strategy that's going to be able to be used in the math department or social studies or English. And so my conversations with those specific supervisors, we're starting to navigate some of those things and work around those, because I think that that's important work where maybe we can wrap some of that AI training into a curriculum revision or an assessment revision, and that's where it makes the most sense. Whereas if it's an overarching piece, it'll be better to bring a diverse group cross-curricularly together. Summer PD for administrators and support staff, I think, is extremely critical. And that's something that I think at all levels of the administrative team is to make sure that we're also using AI or not using it, and making sure that we know what those guidelines and boundaries should be and how we can work most effectively as well. And really, my 5-year plan, as it were, the roadmap to 2030, as I'm calling it, is really to have that K-12 vertically articulated vision. So all the way from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. How are we building up those supports, those lessons, those principles, those guidelines, so that they all match, they're all building toward each other the same way that we build curriculum in every subject area? We need a similar approach when it comes to AI. We shouldn't be treating this any different than we would any of our other very important, curriculum guides. Student and parent outreach is extremely important. I talked about this before. I think that this is a community conversation. It's not just a district conversation. So we need additional student feedback, and I talked about this before with focus groups for all the way from the elementaries all the way through to the high school. I think that I talked about the kindergarten through 6th grade student interviews and focus groups, be extremely important. I was over at Lawrence Brook today and had a great conversation with the media specialist about some of her specific media lessons with students, and how a project that they were working on today, like, oh, this would be a great thing, maybe to have them use some of that. But all right, I have some questions before we do that. And I said, perfect, that's why I'm here. Let's think this through all the way. Before we just kind of jump in, let's make sure that we pump the brakes a little bit and talk about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a healthy, very good thing. And that got me excited. If you can't tell, I'm very jacked up about all this. This is really awesome stuff. AI ethics is extremely important, and this is another piece. There have been some stories nationally and statewide where there have been some misuses of certain AI tools involving imagery, and some of the working groups have said, Herb, what are we going to do? How are we going to approach this? And so I think that when we talk to students, especially at Churchill and the high school, that we're direct with them about some of these things, and we bring them into the conversation. I think the idea of a digital student code of conduct or a digital bill of rights and responsibilities is something that would be a really amazing conversation to have with our students at Churchill and the high school, and talk about, we have a lot of conversations about what we want our physical community to be like. How do you want to feel when you interact with your classmates and with each other? And I think it's the same thing. There's a digital world and a digital community that the students also live in, and we should talk about what we want that to look like as well. And so making sure we give them a seat at the table and talk with them about that is extremely important. And as I said before, the parent universities, homework help is one of the areas I think that we can really speak to the community about when it comes to using generative AI, and talking about specifically homework help. Some of these very complicated, high-level aspects of our curriculum, from elementary all the way to high school, parents want to be able to help their kids. And sometimes with the textbook or the online resources, it's difficult, but generative AI offers a real solid option for a lot of the subject areas. And I know I have a quick story about my 3rd grader who was doing math one night, and her mother's a math teacher, so I usually defer those questions to Mrs. Paluzzo. But I said, I got this. I got to be brave, right? So I said, honey, what's going on here? What don't get frustrated. What's the problem? Oh, Dad, I don't remember what the commutative property is. I'm like, oh. I happened to have my computer open, and I said, well, let me try. So I started typing it into one of the generative AI tools, and it started to generate the answer. And before I could say anything, she goes, oh, Dad, I'm so sorry. I was getting it confused with one of the other properties. I think I got it now. Hold on. She does the math problem, and she goes, oh, Dad, look, based on what it says on there, I got it. I'm like, yeah, you're welcome, honey. I got it. Yeah. Yeah, 3rd grade. Yeah. Well, it's not a complicated. It was complicated for me, but it's for a 3rd grader who's learning to differentiate between these different properties. I was happy to help. We'll leave it there. But that was one of those things where, and that's a big teaching point where I think the fear that people have is that generative AI, because it generates the content, that it could do the homework for a child, or there's a temptation to just get the answer and say, here you go, like let's get to dinner, or let's get to whatever we have next. Where if we frame the the how-to the right way, we can show parents how to help their children do their homework, or achieve the mission, achieve the objective or the goal for their project, and not to have the generative AI just do it for them. So I think that it's a tight distinction that we have to make there, and it's something that I think that would be a really welcome and valuable discussion at a parent university, and I think it'd be a fun conversation to have with parents as well. And the last piece of this is the vetting of AI and ed tech tools, apps, and different programs. And this has been one of the things that, my guiding principle every time we have conversations about these tools is how do each of our tools support specific student learning needs, skill development, and academic achievement? And I think that that's something that we need to continue to ask ourselves as we look at every single program, not just with regards to AI. But it has to do directly with AI because we need to make sure we look at usage data, we look at data that links the program to achieving one of those learning needs, skill development, or academic achievement, and make sure we're being good stewards of our budget as well. I think that data privacy policies and cost considerations are extremely important. The other piece I have there is the impact of consolidation in the marketplace, and that's something that with a lot of the new startups in AI, and one of the reasons I alluded to earlier why we shouldn't fall in love with any one product just yet is because what tends to happen in every business is that some of the bigger companies are looking at these small startups, and it's like, well, they roll out the checkbook, and all of a sudden now this little independent program is now merged in with one of the big companies and part of their suite. That can change the price structure. It can change the data privacy policy. It can change any number of things. They can start to tinker with some of the things that were effective about it that we liked, and there's sometimes an advantage when a company stays small to do that. So that's a huge piece of this, and a lot of the conversations that Nick Cliff and I have, and Dr. Boley about these things, is we just need to keep a close eye on that going forward because it's going to be critically important from both a financial perspective, from a learning perspective, which is the top reason that we're here, but also because of those privacy concerns, I think is absolutely critical. So I can't say enough how proud I am of the work that our working groups has accomplished, but also our leadership team. Everybody, you always worry when you're taking something like this on that people see you coming and like, oh boy, here we go, like AI guy's coming. And nobody, well, people say that jokingly, I think, but they seem pretty happy when I come in and eager to discuss this. And I think that one of the things that's interesting that I talk to people a lot about is some people say that they're very nervous or they're skeptical, and some people are really excited about the potential. And one of the lines that I found myself saying often is that if you haven't felt both of those feelings at some point, then you really haven't used the technology enough, because you should be excited by the use of it, you should be wowed and dazzled by it, but you should be a little concerned. There are aspects of it that should cause you to pause and just pump the brakes a little bit. But if you're only feeling one of those ways, you haven't used it enough and really kick the tires. So that's been the big piece of this that I keep continuing to encourage community members, my colleagues, the teachers, and the staff, is to continue to do that. And I'm very proud of the work and the open-mindedness that we bring to the table. It doesn't surprise me because this is how we tackle every challenge and opportunity as a district in the 18 years that I've been here. So why should AI be any different? So thank you for giving me the time to explain some of the work that we've done, where we're going, and I'd love to take any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peluso. This was a great presentation.
Thank you.
And I, for one, am cautiously optimistic with AI because I agree with you. I'm a little bit nervous, but I've seen some of the good it can do. But I love your digital student code of conduct because it gives the students responsibility and the ownership of their actions. And the reality is, cheating is something we've always had. And I think back to the dark ages, for some of you, you'll appreciate this, encyclopedias. People, when they had to do a book report, and they would take, and you can open the encyclopedia, and you can just take word for word and just transcribe. So we've come a long way, and now the computers are doing that for us. But I think the students that are using it correctly, and the fact that you're doing so much to help them and steward them into how to use it, hopefully is going to be something that we'll see less of the more sinister approaches to the usage, and see just how far it can take us into the future. So
I totally agree. Thank you.
Incredibly excited for that. Mrs. Was?
Thank you for the presentation. I was fearful as an educator myself, and then I have embraced what it can do for educators to allow us to give more to our students. The part I appreciated about the work that you're doing is the living nature of it, that constant reevaluation, because I've had the opportunity to work with other educators about AI, and the amount of change that happens, like I feel as fast as I put together a presentation on how you can use something, it's morphed into different, more something. I actually remember putting together a presentation and I wrote, I wish it provided more feedback to specific items, because AI now can give students feedback on writing very specifically. And the next time I opened it up, it had that. Like just tabs were added. So I am very happy to see that this has sort of a living nature to it, your constant evaluation and vetting, because the programs change. Teachers like to invest in one thing and learn how to do it really well. And this is an entirely different beast because it changes as fast as you learn how to use it. There has to be that, I don't know, fluidity to the way we handle it, and I think you're doing that really well. So thank you for your work, because it's going to be endless.
Absolutely. Now, that's one of the common themes. I got the chance to go to the New Jersey AI Literacy Summit in early December, and one of the challenges that the other administrators and educators that were there said was, as soon as we draft guidance or different assistance guides at some of the things that we've been doing with regards to, if we're going to use ChatGPT or the Bing Copilot tool or Perplexity, a couple of these tools that are out there, their big fear is that as we educate and inform, that it changes so quickly. So how do we stay literate in a constantly changing thing where the target's constantly moving? And I think that the best way that we all agreed was we just keep at it, and we have to continue. Continue to do that and communicate with each other. We have a great team here, but even today, as I was going through things in some of my notes, I was on LinkedIn. I think for me, that's the best place to connect with people. And a couple of folks that at some of these summits that I've met said, "Oh yeah, here's a couple things to think about." And this state just released AI guidance to keep an eye on. So those are the ways that I think that I've found has been helpful, and also just continuing to communicate, because sometimes it's the teachers that find the resource first or this website, and they want to check with me to make sure that is this okay? Is this something I can use? But you're absolutely right. We have to just continue to move with the target and stay positive and open-minded about it.
Mr. Hahn?
Yes. Thank you very much, Herb. So when we met last May in Memorial School, we talked about the AI impact to the education. And we spoke again during the commencement in last June. So last year, the curricular committee reviewed this topic multiple times. That's why I suggest you take this give this presentation to the entire community. So your guys' job is a pioneer job. As far as I know, no school district in the state of New Jersey have ever think about how to build a guidance for AI. And nobody talk about the digital code of conduct. So you guys are the first. I should give credit to you, Dr. Boley, Dr. Voloski. Thank you very much for the job. Okay, as for the ethics discussion, so you mentioned that you are working on the digital student code of conduct. So I will suggest you do the similar thing, digital teachers conduct code of conduct, because AI is not just impacts learning, it's impact teaching too. So we need to have a similar guidance for that. And you mentioned that the AI is a community issue, but I strongly agree with you. We need to let the community know this AI is here. As parents, we better know it. Otherwise, you never know what your kids are doing in their bedroom. But it's very scary, right? So the entire community needs to know AI is here. We need to keep up learning. And so AI not just impact our school district by academically, so it impact everything, administration, school security too. So this afternoon, I took 2 hours of from my work. I attended a seminar. The title is How virtual AI is transforming the conventional school security model. So AI is everywhere. So we got to open our arms, embrace it, and learn it, stay with it, survive with it. Once again, thank you very much for your beautiful job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My doctoral dissertation topic was on cybersecurity issues in schools. And it's interesting, as when AI launched, I was like, I wonder how much I mentioned AI. And like, there were 4 mentions of AI, and because I finished in December of 2022, or I'm sorry, June. I wish I was finished in December, but it took until May of 2022. And it's amazing how quickly AI became part of that security model. And I think that, when we talk about cybersecurity, we talk about education, we talk about generative AI, it's all connected. It's an interconnected world we live in. So I totally agree. And I love the idea of a teacher. The teacher-facing component of that, too, I think is important. And then that's what they're asking for. I think that our staff want to do the best thing that they can do, they want to use the best strategies that they can think of and that they have access to and that they can be trained for. And so I think that that's a big thing that everybody wants to know. What are the rules and what's the best path forward? So I think that's an important part of that. I appreciate your question or your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Winston?
Dr. Paluzzo was excellent. I knew this presentation was going to come one day, and I just didn't know it was today, so thank you. So much about what you said is great, and I think you really described the playbook perfectly, and that would be what one would anticipate. I think this board needs to approach the rule book on this, because this is, there's a lot of rule. I think Mr. Hung said it best. I mean, we're venturing into an area right now that I think we need to have policy around this. There's a lot of opportunity for usefulness, and there's a lot of opportunity for misusefulness, if that's a word. So I encouraged our policy committee to look at this and to see how we formalize the digital code of conduct to work into the narrative of really harnessing the strength of this, because it's pretty big. So my suggestion.
It's interesting that as of just a couple weeks ago, there are only 4 states that have AI guidelines for schools established. California, Oregon, North Carolina, and West Virginia. And so I got a chance to scout through those documents. And it's interesting that I think that that's one of the challenges that we have and why my approach so far has been guidelines, is because I think that eventually it's going to move to policy. I think before, as we move toward that, having guidelines that we can vet, test out, and then discuss further, I think is a great approach to make sure that if we decide to move forward with policy, that we're doing it, through that process, kicking all the tires and making sure that we feel comfortable with all that going forward. Thank you.
Sorry, I was just going to say real quick, equally as impressed as my fellow board members with your presentation. When I first saw it and see the K there, you think to yourself, wow, really? But you're spot on. I mean, it's going to be there if it's not being used already within the next, and I love your plan looking forward as well. I think the passion that you bring to this is perfect and necessary, and I really want to applaud you for that. You're looking at this from a very comprehensive lens with a collaborative mindset. And recognizing that this will continue to accelerate, and so how do we do that as strategically and, more importantly, as safely as possible? So I just really appreciate and applaud your effort there, and thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you so very much, Dr.
And if I
Paluzzo.
could, just one quick question, or not questions, a statement. I just want to thank the board for supporting the vision, Dr. Boley's department, in the creation of Supervisor of Educational Technology. And I want to thank Dr. Paluzzo because he is a passionate individual and professional. I've known him as a teacher before he became the Supervisor of Educational Technology. He is the right person for this job for East Brunswick, and we're very pleased with the work that he does, so thank you.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you again. Speaking of our future, Chris, tell us what's been going on at the high school.
Hi, everyone. A lot has happened at the high school since the last Board of Education meeting, with the most obvious one being our first snow day of the year. Many students warmly welcomed the surprise as it granted everyone a few more crucial days to study for upcoming midterm exams. Looking at the clubs over the past few weeks, Asian Club held its annual Bubble Tea House where hundreds of students came to watch live performances held by students, such as skits, orchestral music, and a spicy ramen eating contest, and more. Additionally, the East Brunswick Student Council attended the NJSC Winter Convention at TCNJ, where student leaders from across the state came together to share workshops, with the East Brunswick Student Council sharing one of their very own workshops on the Homecoming Wagon building. East Brunswick High School is awarded with the Top 10 Projects Award for a Homecoming Wagon Parade, as well as the Honor School Award for a second year in a row, which was a testament to all the hardworking members and advisors at East Brunswick Student Council. Additionally, many students are well into looking into their prom dresses and suits, with the East Brunswick Senior Class Council beginning preparations for this year's prom with interest meetings and announcements to the general school body. And finally, the East Brunswick High School IPPO classes are making their final preparations for the state We the People competition, which will be held this Wednesday at the Rutgers Bush Center. So good luck to all the participants there.
Go get them. And I believe, I don't know, is Dr. Zabicki here tonight?
Yeah, she's in the back.
So the Bear Den, I believe, has prom wear, correct? Correct. So for any students out there that are not able to financially afford prom wear, it's a nice way, people that have worn the dresses, because let's face it, you wear them once, kind of like wedding dresses, but prom dresses are available through Dr. Zabicki, the education. Okay, so, yeah. So you should, I don't know if any of your friends, but in the hallways and for any of our teachers to know if there's students that are in need of prom dresses, they can reach out to the guidance counselor and visit the Bear Den. So, thank you so much for that report.
President Lax, does Chris have any updates on his steps after graduation? He shared it some with us last time we were together.
We might have been talking about that before you got here.
Yeah, we did.
Not any updates as of yet. I think that's gonna come back like later in March. So
That's okay, we're staying on the Princeton high.
So-
You keep riding, yeah. You keep riding that high. We're with you.
Space it out for us.
Yeah, that's true, that's right. Yeah, that's good. All right. Moving on to the good of the cause for the public. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. To protect the privacy of all students and staff, concerns regarding individual students and staff members should generally be addressed by first meeting with the appropriate administrative staff. In order to permit fair and orderly expression, the board should provide a public period for comment at every meeting of the board. You are entitled to 3 minutes duration to speak to the board. The board secretary will keep the timer and let you know as your time is running out. We always remind you that this is not a time to have a dialogue with the board, so any issues that need further addressing, the two lovely ladies in the front, if you make sure that they have your contact information, follow-up can be obtained through Dr. Valesky's office. So that being said, I would like to welcome anyone up this evening to speak to the board. Mr. Shaw. And when you come to the podium, for everyone, if you could just state your name and address for the record, unless you are a student, which in that case you can give us your name and grade if you would like.
Good evening. I'm probably going to take, my name is Neil Shaw, and this is Nikki Tefalowski, Bobby LeMay, and David Chen, and we are the new board for the Fast Break Basketball Association here in East Brunswick. We wanted to come up here today and introduce ourselves, kind of get to know you guys, because we are going to be working in partnership with using the facilities, and we did bring you guys a little bit of a gift to say our thank you. And basically, we would like to get your support, have you guys come out to our games, come out to the different events, support the community, and be able to just make this a whole community event. I'm going to give the mic over to Nikki and Bobby, because they're going to be talking about the numbers of how many new people that have signed up. We've had 1,300 in the past. I think we're at
We're at 600 for our recreation league. We have 2 girls travel teams this year. We also have a special needs division called our buddy ball division. We have 105 buddies. We are still looking for PAL volunteers to come out. It's every Saturday at Churchill Junior High School from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock. So we're always looking for buddies to come, buddies, and we're actually looking for PALs.
So we have the sweatshirts, and we don't want to take up too much of your time. I know that you guys have a pretty long agenda. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I did want to touch on one thing. You mentioned education, and what Fast Break is about. It's about educating the kids about the love of sport and the love of teamwork. So that's what we're about, and that's why we're here. I did have one quick question. I do have a game scheduled for tomorrow, and throwing this out there to Dr. Valesky, I know you canceled us, the schools Friday, but does that mean, is there any chance that there is sports at the end of the day? I'm just throwing it out there. You don't have to answer me now. Don't
Well,
mean
I
to put you on the
can't,
spot.
I can't actually answer your question, so we're gonna have to cancel everything for tomorrow. The storm looks like its volume is gonna be midday. We're gonna be spending the
It's
rest
a
of.
bona fide snow day. You can't do that to the kids.
Yeah, but we're hoping to have the buildings open for Saturday and Sunday events, so that's unfortunately, Friday is, we're gonna be closed.
Gotcha. I didn't mean to steal your snow day, kids. I just wanted sports. But thanks, Dr. Valesky.
And I just wanted to say thank you for all you do for us, allowing us to use the facilities and everything. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
So we have 4 of us, so that's 12 minutes. I should be able to have enough time to pass out the sweatshirts and still get under your guys'.
Thank you. You have a lot of parent alumni of Fast Break up here, so.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. Do I wait for them to do that or call the next person? What would you recommend? Okay. Since they're deferring their extra minutes, I'm going to give a, thank you. I actually have my old one too. I have the new version.
We don't want to say sizes, but this is probably going to fit you like.
He's gonna give me a triple X over here. Hey. I know, I'm on a diet, yeah?
Now, if I make a mistake on these sizes, please.
Yeah, we'll give you whatever size you want.
You didn't tell me. I thought I was guessing because I gave him the sizes for everyone. So I guessed.
You did.
We got it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what?
He asked who's on the day.
Oh, okay.
What do you have?
My husband needs
Got it right, my friend. Extra small.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
We counted for everybody.
Yes, they asked who's on the dais, so everyone is entitled to one on the dais. Hopefully it went to Chris. I think it went to Chris. Do they? Yes? Okay. Oh, how can we forget you?
I got one. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got everybody? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
We'll see you guys at the games.
We look forward to it. Thank you for all your programs. Okay, all right. What's that? Oh, Barbara, did you get Barbara one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. We digressed a bit. Moving back to the rest of the public portion. Want to speak? Oh, would you like to speak first? Okay, you ready? Sorry, I knew that you started to come up when Neil came, so I didn't want to cut you off.
Shazad Shakir, 8 Lantern Lane. First, I just wanted to address Dr. Valesky. I am really happy that you guys are providing support for all these children that may have any type of trauma and what's going on lately. And I want to kind of talk a little bit more about the trauma with the children, right? Because even though these kids don't know it, people are affected, they're affected, and you know what? They may not even know how affected they are at a lot of times. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because about a month ago, my son, he was talking to one of his friends, and his friend kind of said, you know what? One group of people should totally kill an entire other group of people. And my son was very disturbed about that. So what he did was he did bring this up with his guidance counselor, and an HIB investigation was being done. And it came out false, which, because there was no other witnesses to it. Now, here's the thing. All of us were parents here. And when I see a kid, do something wrong, I want that person to be taken care of just as if it was my kid. Because, you know what? My kids like to say stupid things also. They do stupid things. And when I heard this kid say that, I didn't want this kid to get detention. I didn't want this kid to get suspended. But all I really wanted is for someone to go and talk to this kid, because to say one group of people should kill another group of people, that's very, very disturbing on so many different levels. Just having a conversation with a child like this, I mean, for someone to say that, I would imagine that this child unknowingly has a lot of trauma. And it's not just what's happened past October 7th. Our kids are constantly being bombarded with media, whether it be the news, whether it be video games, music, Netflix. Everything is, hey, this person's going to shoot this person or this person. We are so desensitized as a society now on killing and death. And we don't even know how much damage it's done to our kids emotionally. Therefore, like one thing that you mentioned is if people choose to have this help or this support, they can come up and talk about it. But what about those kids that are not acknowledging that they have an issue? If someone does say, hey, this kid said killing an entire group of people is okay, shouldn't at least maybe even
20 seconds.
Even a guidance counselor just approach this child and check if he's okay? That's all I'm really asking at the end of the day. And if there's any type of racism behind it, at least talk to the kid. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, please come and state your name and address for the record. And did you, yes.
If Lou could just make a statement, because I think there's some important information he just needs to share.
Mr.
Sure.
Secure, thank you for bringing that to our attention. And obviously, I know you're not asking me to, and I can't talk about any particular HIB investigation, but I will tell you that in all of our investigations, we always include that we will have counseling, and students do the counseling piece. So we would have that for any potential victim or potential target, or also someone who may have created a statement such as that. So without speaking, I know I'm speaking general, but I just want to make sure you understand that counseling is a part of all of our HIB investigations as they're happening, and also after they're done, after the investigation is completed.
If this child was talking to you, that's perfect. That's all.
Okay.
That's all.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you for your patience.
Atika Gunja, 68 Berkshire Way, East Brunswick. So I just wanted to thank you, Superintendent Valesky, for the wonderful presentation. I think it was very comprehensive, very informative, and makes me feel a lot of support from the school system about this very important issue. Just hoping that it can be systematically shared with the staff and then with students and families too, so that everybody knows that we are aware of the gravity of these international affairs and how they can affect us here at home. So I think it needs to be shared outside of this room, because obviously it needs to be systematically shared. So just like I talked to you guys at the end of the last meeting, I had the opportunity to talk to some of the board members. I have a daughter in pre-K, so I don't have the same experiences on social media and things like that that the older kids would have. But there was like one or 2 days that I was feeling really upset about stuff. So I talked to the teacher about it, and she didn't really know how to respond. And so I felt like, again, that was just not because of her, but because there's just no lack of support for the staff of how to interact with families or students about this topic. And they might be scared to say something wrong or feel that it's controversial or something like that. And I wasn't talking to her about anything political. I was just talking to her about that we're, as Muslim families, we're really hurting right now, because my daughter's class has a significant amount of Muslims in the classroom, and I talked to the parents, and we're all in the same boat, feeling this way. So I think that support is definitely lacking for our faculty. So I felt bad too for the teacher to put her in any kind of awkward position. So lastly, just the HIB reports. I've been talking to a lot of community members, from the Muslim community, a lot of families. They're unaware of how to do that. If there's any, some of the concerns I'm hearing is like, will it go on a student's permanent record? Will it go on a police record? So they have like a lot of concerns about it. They don't know the process step by step. And I did look at the website, but maybe putting a step-by-step approach on there how to do the HIB report, and then maybe like an FAQ section to go over some of those, common concerns that parents might have. So again, and then like maybe if you're gonna put out any kind of statement or, that should be part of it as well, the HIB reports, because I think those are important that we document the incidents that are happening, because I think there's a lot more incidents than just what you've heard in this session. I've personally been told a lot of incidents over the last 2 weeks since the last meeting. So we are encouraging our families to please document them. Lastly, just Dr. Paluzzo, he might even be the expert of this, is like some type of social media literacy course might be useful in our curriculum, how to navigate TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all those things, how to spot disinformation, how to communicate safely and effectively on there. I think that would be like really a great, I don't know if it's available yet right now in our curriculum, but that might be something to consider doing. But thank you so much for addressing this topic, and I hope we can keep actively being engaged with the parents about it with you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gunn. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the board this evening? Yes? If you could come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Winston. I'm at 22 Clearview here in East Brunswick. I'm not only a resident, but I'm the mother of 2 children who attended East Brunswick schools. And to clear up any confusion because of my last name, I am Jeff Winston, board member Jeff Winston's ex-wife. So let's make it very clear that I'm not here to defend anybody in any way, but only to get clarity, especially now after the recent comments we just heard about the disbandment of the security committee. It was on social media. It was in an article in TAP East Brunswick. And, in 2018, after the devastating school shootings at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, where 17 innocent students lost their lives, Dr. Valesky issued a statement from the EBHS football field sharing that when he began his career, it was all about education, but now it's become, unfortunately, all about the security and safety of our children and students, rightfully so, in my opinion, at this point. In 2022, after yet another horrific mass shooting at Robb Elementary, 19 students were murdered that day. Dr. Valesky had a similar message where he, quote, called for a collaborative and ongoing effort surrounding security and safety measures. There were more school shootings in 2022 than any other year since Columbine, a total of 46. 34 students and adults died, while 43,000 children were exposed to gunfire at schools. 43,000. So I'm a little confused. What is the justification for disbanding the school security committee? I'm baffled by that. And I'm trying to understand, Dr. Valesky was quoted recently as categorically denying that, but yet there seems to be some question about, is there a committee? So I'm posing that question. If there is one, how often does it meet? There was a statement about it being wrapped up into the general school board, which, as far as I know, meets every couple of weeks. Not nearly enough attention on safety and security, I'm concerned, as the other parents are. And I'm more concerned about the infighting amongst this school board. Okay? It's abhorrent, in my opinion. You have placed your personal agendas above the well-being of the students, faculty, and staff. Okay? So there's truth and transparency. So is there a security committee? And if so, is Mr. Sismar, the only qualified board member here with 25 years of law enforcement experience, still leading that? I'm curious to know. And if you don't direct your energies toward making the East Brunswick school system better, I suggest you do, or I'll call for a recall of the board president. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Winston. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the board this evening? Okay, no, seeing none, I'm going to close the public portion and move on to our agenda for the evening. May I please have a motion for the Board of Education, item number 1, minutes, and the addendum that was on your, Mrs. Becker, moved by Mrs. Becker, second by Mrs. Herrick. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. May I please have a motion for the 6 items on tonight's curriculum and instruction? Oh, did I skip community? I'm sorry, little community programs in the corner here. Mrs. Becker, thank you. Second by Mr. Winston. Is there any discussion? Mr. Sismar.
I like saying the word humdingers here. Just for clarification, this was supposed to be on the 19th. Am I to assume that we are in school now on the 19th, so this contract would not be voted on tonight and canceled?
Mr. Sismar, yes, we are planning to be in school on the 19th. We're asking for the board approval, should anything change between now, if the board were to make any changes in the calendar, that we would still have this approved and set aside. But right now, on the board's calendar, we are scheduled to be in session on February 19th.
Correct. So my question is, I guess, is about the contract. Like, if we're approving it tonight and we're in school, we can't use it. So
We're
is
not
there
gonna
something in the
execute
new
the contract.
contract that says,
Go ahead, Joe. I'm
like a
sorry.
back door that we can?
It's, the board is authorizing us to enter into the contract, doesn't mean we're going to execute it, and if we do not use it on the 19th, we'll not be obligated to.
There's no
pay.
penalty, I guess, is my
Correct.
question for
So
us not
it's just-
using it.
It's safeguarding us and giving us the
Yes,
flexibility.
That's my question, yes. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Now may I please have the motion for curriculum and instruction items? Moved by Mrs. Becker, second by Mr. Winston. Is there any discussion? Mr. Hung.
So for item number 4, so this $460,000, and this is big contract. And from this short description, I don't get how this contract will be executed and how this tutoring program will be taught. So I'd like to know more information about this, because this is very important. This money is from state will be used for the impact student who desperately need our tutoring assistance. But this one only says, oh, we give this contract to this organization for the amount of $460,000. How long and how much our own staff will get involved. So I want more information for this. So if possible, I suggest we table this item for next board meeting.
Actually, Mr. Hong, could Dr. Boley explain what the high-impact tutoring grant is about?
Certainly.
And maybe that would answer your questions.
The $460,000 was the full grant that we received. We are employing our staff, our teachers, to provide in-person tutoring for our students. This company can provide a virtual option for any gaps, to fill in the gaps if we don't have certain staff at certain grade levels or in certain buildings, and also to provide flexibility for families. So if a student couldn't stay after school or wanted a Saturday morning perhaps, and that worked better for the family, this company, as needed, we will use them as needed to fill in gaps for students.
So how much money will be paid to this company, and how much will pay to our own staff? And how long will this tutoring program will last?
So the grant expires at the end of August. Hopefully, the state, since it was released late, will extend that. It's hard to predict. Certainly, we want to, support our staff in working with our students first, but this company is a backup plan for any areas where we may not have staff available.
So that means it's at certain situation, this company will get nothing, and this entire $460,000 will be paid to our own staff, whoever involved this program. Can I
I mean, I guess it's a
Potentially.
possibility.
Yeah, it's a-
The contract obligates us, if we use them, to pay either the $1,320 for a 2 days per week session or the $1,890 per 3-day session, week session. So the contract is only obligating us based off of use, and if they fit into the 2-day or the 3-day-a-week category.
That's their rate, and we'll use them as needed.
So they're a second tier to utilizing our own teaching staff.
Okay, so in future, I would like to see the contract before we move to vote, because this is such a big number involved. Thank you for your explanation.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, all
And I
those-
have another one.
Oh, you do, I'm sorry.
For the item number 2. So we are going to get Ms. Ford for a piece of music. It says, okay, once the piece is composed, he will come to us, share some insight and the meaning behind the music. So I suggest if he can come earlier to talk to our student, share his idea, get some input from our student, and then he start to compose this music. That will be more meaningful instead of this way, let's reinforce the order. And second one for the same things, and this contract states that this writer got the copyright. So it states that it's not work for hire. We paid him the money. It's definitely work for hire. We should have the copyright instead of he has it. But it's okay, I can let it go. But I suggest he come here to talk to our student teacher first and then start his job. That will make his job more meaningful. So just comments.
Very good comment. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Is there anything that needs separating out under our 11 items under financial services? If not, I'm going to ask for a motion for those 11 items. Motion by Mrs. Becker, second by Mr. Winston. Is there any discussion on the 11 items under financial services? Okay, then this one is a roll call vote. I'll ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Mrs. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Sismar?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Guas?
Yes.
Mrs. Herrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hong?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
President Lax?
Yes, motion carries. We have one item this evening for human resources. So moved by Mrs. Becker, second by Mr. Winston. Is there any discussion? No, then will secretary please call the roll? Sorry. We're speaking.
Mrs. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Sismar?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Guas?
Yes.
Mrs. Herrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hong?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
President Lax?
Yes, motion carries. We have 4 items this evening for student services. May I have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Becker, second by Mr. Winston. Is there any discussion? Okay, this too is a roll call vote. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Sismar?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Guas?
Yes.
Mrs. Herrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hong?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yep.
President Lax?
Yes, motion carries. Bring us to community reports, information items, and the good of the cause for the board. Oh, I didn't look through it. Mrs. Becker.
So last night, the Recreation Park Advisory Board, affectionately known as the RPAB, met, and a few things I wanted to bring to the board's attention, but also to the public. First of all, Chris, if you could take this message back to the high school. Crystal Springs still needs staff for the summer, particularly lifeguards. Apparently, there's a shortage of lifeguards in the state. So they're doing everything they can to advertise and to get people to apply. If whatever could be mentioned maybe in the school newspaper or student council, and for the general public, if the general public or their children are interested in working at Crystal Springs this summer, they can get in contact with the Recreation Department at the township. The phone number is on their website. Also, and this is really great news, the RPAB is applying for a grant to build an all-inclusive playground at Lenape Park. The reason why this is great news is because it will not just only be completely ADA accessible. The equipment will be able to be used by any child. And it's wonderful for the kids of East Brunswick, particularly our special needs population, but all children. And anything that's good for the children of East Brunswick is good for East Brunswick. And the final thing is, I had mentioned last meeting that the East Brunswick Orchestra, it has a premiere event this Sunday, and it's sold out. And what I wanted to reference was that many of the musicians in the orchestra are former East Brunswick students who played in the orchestra and band at Churchill and the high school, who are still living in the area. So it'll be exciting to get a chance to see them reconvene. That's my report.
Thank you. Mr. Sismar.
Hi, I have two committee reports tonight as the former chairperson of both policy and security. This should provide some clarification for the public, I hope. I want to thank Mr. Winston for, I guess, starting the conversation. A lot of us saw on social media. I believe in transparency as he does, and I like to inform the public as much as I can about security. So bear with me. I'm cautious when I speak. You know, I saw it on there. It says the committee was disbanded. It was an elimination of a redundant committee. It was being abolished. In my opinion, I don't care whatever word one uses. It's a bad idea to remove the committee in its past form as it was last month. And I'm saying this too, as an expert in security and protecting our students and staff, removing it to where it is now, it's an action that potentially makes the district less safe. And I have a lot of supporting reasons why, but I will only say potentially at this point, because the board has the opportunity, in fact, the obligation and duty to immediately correct what was done. And I'm not going to use the names, but it said in the social post, the two people that made the decision. In my opinion, it's a wrong decision to move it. And I start when I'm talking, you know, we are a Board of Education. We exist as 9 members. We are consensus seeking. No decision, and in fact, policy backs this up, should be made by one board member. So I'll start with some historical context. This may clarify the difference between the things. So on November 29, 2018, the full board voted 9-0 to establish the Security Committee. I was there, Mrs. Becker, Mrs. Reese, Mr. Hong, and Mrs. Lax. We're the remaining 5 made the decision on that day to create this. I suggested it to Dr. Valesky and the board after I came on in June of 2018, kind of coinciding with some of the comments from the public before about the time frame. I saw the need for a security committee to discuss confidential matters. And I brought it to the board, I brought it to Dr. Valesky, and obviously it was passed 9-0. To clarify some of the stuff that was online, the meeting that was talked about, that includes Chief Lasacco, the OEM coordinator, John Kosick. It included the PTA president, the fire marshal, et cetera. That was and is still in existence today. It's called district safety. It is not the security committee. I repeat, it is not the security committee. And those words are important. District safety only has one board representative on it. And like I said, I can give you a quick timeline from 2013. District safety, that's when I became involved in as an employee and going to the meetings. There was discussions back then about arming officers in the schools. 2016, again, I'm not giving details, but there was more paperwork done about discussions in schools. I'm sorry, I got on the board. One of the main reasons was to protect the children of this district. That's what I bring to the table. And I make no bones about saying that. In June of 2018, I was thankfully appointed by the board, and I had to run in another election. In August of 2018, that is when we established this committee. And I'll tell you, and if this is a little critical, it is what it is. From 13 to 18, we were talking about getting armed officers in the schools, okay? Less than a year after the security committee was formed, we had armed officers in the schools. We started small, we've expanded it to where it is today. It helps me to sleep at night. You know, Mr. Nataliccio's in charge of the program. And let me tell you, I since then, since 2013, Paul is my best friend, full disclosure, but we work hand in hand to come up with ideas and do things. So part of what I have is what I consider a policy violation in the way it was done. And then if the board continues to have this moved into a full board discussion, I have supporting reasons why I think it's a bad idea. So I'll start with the policy violations. Policy 155, which was referred to in the social media posts and the message that was sent out to the committee, to the community. Security is still listed on there as a committee, standing committee. District safety is still listed on there today. But like I said, that's a different meaning. We don't talk about confidential matters in there. We did it in 2013. We created policy 6 years ago, which I've led since then. And moving it, like I said, if we decide to do that, I have issues with it. So if we look at the current policy, 155, it says a chairperson shall be appointed by the president. Shall, and I'm not a lawyer here, but I have my lawyer here if I say something wrong, it's an action that must be taken. Shall is not may or can or maybe should. Shall is there should be a chairperson. As far as I know, there's no chairperson for this new style of committee. The second thing I have an issue with in the policy, to change it from its past approved form, which was a full board discussion and vote, for one board member and, the superintendent to make the decision to change it, I'll ask for a legal opinion tonight. The statement from 155 is, the board reserves the right to meet and work as a committee of the whole in informational, discussion, and exploratory sessions. No official action shall be taken at these meetings unless so advertised. And now, I guess, Mr. Jacoby, I'm asking, if a policy says, so we had a committee that was voted on and approved. The policy says the board reserves the right. Does that language mean that this then would have to be taken to the entire board, or can one person just change it?
So, first, let me just answer your first question, and then answer somebody in the public. No committee, the standing committees that are in 0155, there's 10 of them, I believe. They cannot be abolished but for action of the board. So no committee was abolished. Security committee, the board, under the bylaw, you do have the right to have a committee of the whole for any one of the committees. So for example, if the board wanted to have finance be a committee of the whole, they could. So you do have the ability to have, there are some boards that have all committees, and they operate as a committee of the whole for all committees. I would not recommend that, because you basically are not giving due course to all of the different items. The reason you have various committees is you get in depth on various things. So the committee of the whole, and the bylaw also says that the president of the board appoints the committees and appoints the chairperson of the committees. That's a prerogative that's not only codified here, that's in every district in the state of Jersey. So do I think that does the superintendent, in consultation with the board president, have the ability to say, we want the security committee to operate as a committee of the whole? I think they probably do have that prerogative to do that. But the committee itself cannot be abolished. The only body who can abolish a standing committee is the full board. You need a majority roll call vote of the board to abolish a standing committee. This isn't an ad hoc committee. This is, the difference between an ad hoc committee, which is also in that policy, is it lives for the purpose. So, for example, you guys have an ad hoc committee on the high school. Once the high school is built or not built, that committee will just disband. The 10 committees that you have there, finance, negotiations, I don't know them all off the top of my head, security, curriculum, policy, those are permanent committees. They survive unless the board, whoever's in power at the time, decides to abolish them or combine them, et cetera. Do I think that now the one thing I can also say is that as you know, all security, school security, is discussed in executive closed session. So whenever you or the Director of Security, Mr. Natalicio, addresses the board, that always occurs in closed executive session. because you have to protect the safety of the students, staff, and visitors. So I do believe that the committee of the whole 0155, there is discretion. I think you could infer that the president who appoints the committees and who selects a chairperson of that committee does have the ability to designate it as a committee of the whole. In essence, what the president is doing is she's designating the whole board to be on the security committee. And the moment that that happens, once you have more than a quorum, it has to occur at a board meeting. Now, in terms of board meetings, committees of the whole, you can do a committee of the whole at a regular meeting, like this evening, you could have security in closed session. You could do it at a special meeting if there's something you guys wanted to just talk about security. But you can also do it as an emergency. If there's truly a bona fide emergency, God forbid there's some massive security issue comes up or there's real threats, the board and the superintendent can call an emergency meeting. You have to do that very, with great discretion. It has to be a true bona fide emergency. You can't make up an emergency, but let's say there's some type of high alert that's put out by the federal government or the state government, you guys could call an emergency meeting for the purposes of security. But all those discussions do take place in closed. So the way I read 0155, I do believe that the president, whoever he or she is at any given time, can appoint the full board to any one of the standing committees. And the moment that more than a quorum is appointed, it becomes a committee of the whole. That's my opinion.
And again, not to be argumentative, sir, we have some pretty good discussions here. The policy states what a president can do, what a president can do, what a president can do. The sentence I read again, it says, "The board reserves the rights to meet and work as a committee of the whole." To me, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the board is at least a quorum more than 9 to reserve the right to meet as a whole. I just, again, not to be argumentative, but how can one person change that?
No, I think what you're saying, can the board as a whole say, we want to meet as a committee of the whole on all standing committees? The board could. I would never recommend it, but the board could. What I'm saying is, the board policy, it does say that the president appoints the committees, correct?
The president appoints the people in the committees. The committee structure, just by the policy, is a chairperson, 3 other members, and an alternate. This totally changes the dynamic, and the only thing I can see in here, and like I said, I'm not going to argue with your ruling, so you're saying the president can do it by themselves without consulting with the board?
No. The president, under your policy, and under this policy 0155, the president is empowered to appoint board members to committees and to appoint a chairperson to to that committee. That's it. It doesn't limit the board president from how many people they're appointing. What I'm saying is, by law, the moment the board president appoints more than 4, the moment they appoint 5 people, if they appointed 5 people, that requires it to occur at an open public meeting that's duly noticed, except in the cases of a bona fide emergency when you can do the call that 48 hours. So my reading of it is, I do think that the board president, there's no limit on how many people or how many board members a board president can appoint to a given committee. In this instance, I believe that, the president reserves that right to appoint 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and if it's 9 appointed, then it operates as a committee of the whole. That's my reading, and I think that's how, a core of the commission would look at it.
I'm going to actually interject here.
Hang on,
No,
I haven't yielded
Mr.
my
Sismar.
time.
Okay, there's no yielding of time. We all
No,
have the
that's
ability to speak.
Robert's rules, and I was speaking to the attorney, and again, I wanted clarification then. It says a chairperson shall be appointed. Who's the chairperson?
But I'm going to clarify for you. I have an answer for you.
Okay, please, that was my next question.
Thank you. Okay, so I applaud anyone that sits up here. I've always said it. Everyone knows security is something that is near and dear to my heart, and I am the sole board member that has sat on the committee, the safety committee, with Dr. Figueroa and the chief and OEM and the fire and the principals for as long as that has been in existence. So no one is going to challenge my commitment to security. And if you remember, one of the reasons that I was so excited to bring you onto the board back then and to talk to you about the board was because of your security background. So it did take a lot of years to get security force the way that we've wanted it for a very long time in that committee. And Dr. Figueroa can tell you, back when Chief Kraus sat on it, I worked my butt off to work for security. And that took a long time. And I applaud your background. I love everything you've done, and your history is admirable. But I will say this, security is something that I feel is so important, and the reason the Committee of the Whole became such an important part of this bill, this body, is that, and I don't even know if you realize this, do you know how many security meetings were held in 2023? 0. So you talk about, and the public is worried that we're not going to have the ability to deal with security because we meet every 2 weeks. In the 4 years or 5 years since you've had this committee, I asked them to poll the committee meetings. There were 10 committee meetings, 10 security meetings in 4 years. So we meet every 2 weeks. You just heard that we have the ability to have emergency sessions. I'm sorry, I don't feel I did a disservice to security. I feel that by elevating it to a committee of the whole, we have the ability to talk about very important situations that could come up, have come up as a board. Because the reality is, while your absolutely stellar background is wonderful, the reality is the 9 of us are the ones that have to make decisions that are based on the recommendations of this man that benefit the over 8,000 students and 2,000 employees in this district. So while it is incredibly wonderful to have that, we hire a gentleman to run security in this district. And so this is the problem. People sometimes don't realize securities, and yes, as the president, I said security, said committees, and I make this person the committee chair, and a lot of it's done by seniority. A lot of it is also done by requests. Since I've been president, and it was a practice before me, I ask, please give me your request. What committees would you like to be on? So you didn't even give me the request for security committee. So I don't know where this is coming from. But I will tell you that 10 meetings in 4+ years, I felt that we needed to be able to do it every 2 weeks.
Yeah, and guys, I just want to clarify one thing so that the public understands. The board sits on all various committees. The committees that you serve on, they're to make sure that the district is well-run. The School Ethics Act, which is a law that all these board members are bound to uphold, and if they violate it, they go before the School Ethics Commission. You have to make sure that the school is well-run. You don't run the day-to-day operations. So what the security committee has done over the years in consultation with the full board, because committees bring things to the board, is you guys have made a very robust, and I've said this to you guys privately, and I'll say it publicly, my firm represents, not me personally, over 100 school districts. You have, bar none, in the entire state, the most comprehensive security plan I've ever seen. Nobody, there's not a district in the state, inner city, et cetera, that has the security force that you have of, 80, 90 retired law enforcement officers, armed, trained. It's unbelievable. But the committee does not run the day-to-day operations. What you guys have done is you've hired Dr. Valesky to run the day-to-day operations, and since he's technically charged with overseeing all security, you guys have also permitted him to hire a real bona fide expert in Paul Nataluccio and Kevin Zebro as the vice security, director. Because those are two true bona fide experts. They're both retired law enforcement. So I don't want anyone in the public to think that the board runs security. They don't. They oversee the security. They want to make sure it's well run. But the people charged with running it day to day to make sure the students and staff are safe are that gentleman right there, and that gentleman back there who works for Paul Nataluccio or works for the board. Those are the folks that make sure that the day-to-day are safe, because board members aren't in the buildings day-to-day. These are the people that, so I just want everyone, I think, everyone should understand, the board is the body that there wouldn't be 90+ security officers with guns in the schools. There wouldn't be these robust security things that the public doesn't know about, but for the board authorizing the purchases, the hiring, et cetera, based on the recommendations of the superintendent in consultation with the board and the various committees. So I just want everyone to know that there's no the board itself, no matter, even if it's an individual committee, a security committee, or a security committee of the whole, that committee does not run the security. They do not have any input in day-to-day operations. They can't by law. They put forth the policy. They give as I always have said, it's kind of like a football team. You guys are like the owners. You guys get the money, and then you hire your head coach, Dr. Valesky, and then he goes out and hires his quarterback, Paul Nataluccio and Lou Figueroa and things like that, and that's the team that brings you to the championship game. So, the team that runs the day-to-day operations, you guys oversee that team, and you oversee Dr. Valesky, and you hold him accountable, and then he has to hold all the employees below him accountable in their various expertise. You heard the gentleman tonight I learned more about AI tonight than I even knew existed. A little scared about it, but that's why you guys have done it. You guys have done it. I mean, I have to tell you, this board, and the 5 of you that were here for years, and the other boards have gone, I've never seen anything like this in any district I represent, and I've been doing this for 30 years. It's the most robust security plan in any district I've seen in the state. And frankly, a lot of the districts I represent, which are very big districts, contact me and say, hey, do you represent East Brunswick? How did they do that? How did they get that many security people? Well, it didn't happen overnight. You guys, as you know, this was a planning thing that you guys did and budgeted for. I mean, it took years to get to the point where you are. If a new district started, it'd probably take them a decade to get where you guys are today.
So can I finish my statement?
Yeah.
May I finish my statement?
Oh, yeah, I'm just trying
No,
to.
I got it. I wasn't going to go down this road, but I tried to call some meetings this year, and people weren't available, and I understand that. We're all volunteers. And even some of the meetings, I moved to 5 o'clock on Thursdays, because it's hard for people to come out on a Tuesday or a Monday or whatever. And then in social media again, and I wasn't going to go down this road, it was called redundant, that was, again, repeated 5 minutes later. I don't have a problem with redundancy when it comes to security. I think we should talk about it as often as we can. My problems with moving it, this is my opinion, for moving it into closed session. Okay, our policy says a committee meetings may be called at any time by the committee chairperson. This option has been eliminated. Now it has to only be called, basically, under the rules of an Open Public Meeting Act. Like, there were plenty of times that Dr. Valesky had called me and Paul and whatever, and we kind of had an impromptu meeting about security. So by moving it, this is my problem, by moving it into closed session, then it falls under executive session rules. The quickest meeting, and I know it's an emergency, because I'm very well versed in it, it better be a very serious emergency.
Bona fide emergency.
Correct. Something that's just important, all right? Not an emergency, not a bona fide emergency. The quickest we could have a security meeting is 48 hours. Because by moving the security committee into executive session, it falls under different rules, the Open Public Meetings Act. So we have to give 48 hours notice to the public. That is the quickest we can do something. I get it, a catastrophic emergency, but, it limits the ability to speak to Mr. Nataliccio, other experts in the field. Because when we talk about stuff in closed session, guess what, folks? We can't talk about it to anybody else. So if we're in closed session and we talk about something, I'm actually violating the rules of executive session by going out and doing my own research on these topics and talking to people. It doesn't belong in executive session. This was used from time to time because Dr. Valesky came to me and he said, hey, this is something we should bring to the whole board. And I was very agreeable to that. I just don't think, first of all, I disagree, and sorry, we can have a disagreement, Mr. Jacoby, when it says the board reserves the rights, because we've said the board several times tonight. The board is the 9 of us. A singular person make a decision, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree on that, sir. But from everything I know, and again, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I was there in the beginning. I've been hand in hand with Paul all the way. Moving this into executive session is a bad idea. Committees are created. We know why committees are created. It's a smaller group of experts, and we can bring other people in. And you hone down the ideas, and then you put it into place. That's how we got here today, is the committee format. not handling it just in executive session. That's my objection to this. I made no negative comments about you, President Lax. I didn't say you don't care about security. And if I finished my statement where I was cut off, I just said, as an expert, I think it's a bad idea to put it into executive session. And I have right in my notes here, I am not saying that President Lax, Dr. Valesky, and in fact, all my fellow colleagues on the dais do not care about security any less than I do. But I'm saying, listen to me, because you don't know security like I do. I don't think it belongs in executive session. So I made no negative comments, and had I been able to finish my statement, I get it, Lori. Yes, that's why you brought me on. I gave a paying job to come on here and do this, hand in hand with you. I'm telling you right now, this is a bad idea to keep it in executive session. It should be a committee. You want to appoint somebody else as chairperson, you have that right. And since you went down the road of when I gave you my personal email about what committees I wanted, and I didn't choose security, my email stated, I don't want to do finance. I can't do any daytime committees. But I opened the door. I said, put me on any committee you wish. So this hasn't been a combative relationship, but I do have my opinion. This is not a good idea in my opinion, and I say this should have been a full board discussion before the move was made. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your opinion. I respect your opinion. One thing I do want to clarify, though, and as I said, I'm not taking anything away from your stellar resume, but we have to always remember, this is the hard thing that Matt just said a minute ago. We have to remember our position as board members. Your conversations shouldn't be with Paul Natalicio. Dr. Valesky and Paul Natalicio should be discussing the direction of our security, and then he reports to us. And that's something that sometimes as board members we forget. The only administrator that we are supposed to talk to and deal with directly is Dr. Valesky. He then can send us in any direction or tell us if there's something that needs to be done that another administrator has to weigh in on. But as board members, unfortunately, our role is oversight. So no matter how wonderful some of our backgrounds are and all the different areas that we bring an expertise of our lives, that is something that's hard to remember. And for you, as I said, because you are so decorated and have done so much, I understand your passion for security and I applaud that. But I just want to caution you that this is in no way taking away from that. It's just in this particular case, Dr. Valesky and Mr. Natalicio are the ones that are supposed to be directing security. And I have to just, you made me think. Because when you talk about back in 2013, and Mrs. Becker and I are, I think, the only ones left from the initial way back when discussions, I have to tell you something. The person who we should be patting on the back for our security, and I don't know if anyone has realized it yet, is this man. Because we have been through 3, and for you, 4 different superintendents that we have tried for a long time to get this done. So it's not one person, 2 people, it's this man that did it. Because it's always, and you see that every year, we have the potential for a different body of people that are sitting up here. So you have to have the guidance because he's got to get the votes. Because trust me, I know what it was like. You're right when these discussions. I was on the board back then, and I can't discuss how people voted, but I didn't always have the votes. And I had to go to our safety committee when they would sit there and say point blank, Lori, what's going on with your board? Why is there no security? And I had to sit there and say to them, I can't tell you why, because we didn't have the full board. So I applaud you, I applaud everyone that was on the board back in 2018, but as I said, this guy gets all of the credit for it, because it took us 3 superintendents to get it done. And this is in no way, especially Dr. Magistro, it's in no way. She was wonderful, and she was ahead of her time in security. So I mean no disrespect at all to her and what she's done in this district. I'm just saying, and I'm sorry to do this to you, but you won't take a bow for it. But the reality is, you have been so security focused, so.
You might want to let the public know. I mean, I don't know if people realize that we keep on talking about Mark being an expert. People might not know it. You're a retired law enforcement officer, work for the Secret Service, things like that. So you have a lot of law enforcement. I don't want people to think that you're an expert.
Yes.
That was your job, and you're doing security now in another district, a neighboring district. So just so people understand it, because there's probably a lot of people in the public that don't realize what the reason you're an expert is that was your profession and remains your profession. Just want the public to know that.
Yeah, just a quick comment. It's not the argument, but you said, about caution me about giving directives to Paul and stuff. It's not directives. I never gave directives to Paul, Dr. Valesky. It's research. And the only way you can get things done is by individuals on this board conducting research. It handcuffs us, like I said, to put everything into executive session. So it's not directives. I never called up Dr. Valesky or Paul and said, no, it's an important point to make. It's research, and each board member should do their own research. Overseeing something, when somebody wants to make a decision on overseeing if something's done correctly, I encourage you to do your own research and get your own facts for the situation. Don't even rely on what I say, okay? That's not, you can question people that are experts in the field. Do your own research. This is handcuffing some of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
One other thing too, just so, Mark, we're not a committee of the whole, the committee, in the committee form of three people with an alternate, that still was closed to the public. It wasn't an executive session, but the public, yeah.
But I can talk to Paul.
Yeah, no, exactly, but I want the public to understand that the security committee, by its very nature, is never disclosed to the public, because we don't, I want the public to, but I don't know if the public does. It can never be disclosed to the public, because the primary concern of school security is to protect the students and staff in the buildings, and the only way you can ensure that bad people can't breach it is you don't share all of your strategies, equipment, man and women power that are done throughout the school district. So that's why no matter what it's done, those discussions are always done outside the presence of the public.
You and I may disagree, but I wholeheartedly applaud your, vigor for security. And as I said, I have the same thing. So I am fine with agreeing to disagree on things, and I respect everything you said. Mr. Winston, sorry.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. There's a lot of clarity in there, and in many points, perhaps I will too agree to disagree. But I want to go back to something that was really laid out very nicely, President Lax and our board attorney. Here are some of the comments I just heard. You pointed to this man, Dr. Valesky, and giving him the due credit, which I agree. You mentioned this committee that we had, and our attorney said the most robust is the result. And those all sound like pretty positive things. I'm not sure I would break something that those were the results. I'm not sure what would compel me to dismantle something that gets the accolades that you all just said. So where I really got hung up on this, yes, I wrote it, I don't regret it, and I am concerned about it. I get hung up on the why. Why would you do this? If the results that we've received have been exceptional to the point of other districts around the state, around the country, are coming to us based on what we had, what would make you think that we needed to break it and change it? It makes no sense. So I had to go back and I said, why? And fortunately, the TAP did an article, and they did quote, and essentially they said, why? It eliminated a redundant committee of the Board of Ed. All right. You went on to say, and this is a quote from Mrs. Lax in this article, and if it's misquoted, please correct the record. You said it was just by a few board members that was literally repeated to the board an hour later. Please, Ms. Lax, tell me that wasn't the reason why you did this.
It was not the reason.
But that's what you said.
The quote is inaccurate.
It is inaccurate?
Yes.
Oh, good. All right. Then let me ask you, if it was so good and produced so many great results, to all of the things that I just heard everybody line up and say, what had happened since what year, 2018, why would you change it?
So what we're talking about is security as a whole. We're not talking about the security committee. There's nothing I can point to, and this is not, and I sat on the security committee with Mr. Sismar, so I'm not insulting myself or Mrs. Becker or Mrs. Gwasek, the people that sat on it, but there's nothing so good that came out of the security committee.
Wow.
So,
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because Jeff, I think you're confusing two things. You're confusing this security of the district with a committee that meets to discuss things. And as I mentioned before, in over 4 years, this committee met only 10 times. So what I'm trying to explain to you is that it's not that the committee hasn't done anything, but the reality is, and I apologize, I'm going to go back to your quote for a second. The quote was a conversation when Maureen asked me about the committee, and she said, would you be losing anything by not having this committee? And so the comment that I made was that no, it was so important that we wanted to have it as a committee for the entire board, because security is something that you need to know about. And Jeff, you didn't sit on the security committee.
No,
But
I'm talking
I
about the
feel-
results.
But
No.
I feel personally, you need to be a part of any conversation about this district, because as the 9 members that oversee the district, we all have to have a say in security. So when Maureen said to me, well, if you take away the committee, does it hurt security? That is where, and it's kind of, it's not that it's misquoted, it was, the conversation was that nobody loses out. The conversation was, if we have a committee, we'll sit there and have a discussion, and then we would go into executive session, and we would then, and I apologize, you're getting my back, we would then tell the rest of the board. So it wasn't that I was saying it was just reported 5 minutes later. It was that we're having the same discussion
You'll change
because
it.
you
Okay.
need to be able to have the same information.
I'm fine with that. So that's good. All right, good. I'm happy to hear you were misquoted, and that does does give me a little bit of lift here, but it doesn't change the question of why. Whether, I didn't sit on the committee, I didn't sit on it, I agree, but what I did hear is what the results of our current security structure, whether it be through committee or the people who run it, or assure that it runs well. The results sound great. I wouldn't change that.
But
I
again,
just, I
that's
don't
not the
understand why I would
committee.
change
I
something
don't
that's
know how
go,
to
excuse me,
explain this to
I
you.
won't, I don't know how you could explain it to me. I don't know how you could explain why one would change something that's going so great. It is literally like trading the greatest quarterback in the world. I just
How do I
can't
explain
get
this to
there.
him?
It doesn't make sense. There is no reason why, and the public deserves to know that. It's not broken.
Because
Don't
you're
fix it.
confusing two things, Jeff. Our
Results.
security, but there's no results that came out of a security committee.
What
And
we
I-
have in place, it doesn't matter where they came from,
But-
you're missing the point.
And this is where you're getting, and I worry, because this is where I get nervous that you're going to make the committee, the public think that there is some kind of lack here of security. Because the reality is, our security system hasn't changed. The effectiveness of our security system hasn't changed. It
Not
is as
according to the
strong as ever.
expert. The expert just said,
Okay.
it made our district less safe. We just agreed he's the expert.
No.
That's what he's just said.
I
He
don't,
said it.
I really don't think we want to leave the public with that perception.
Absolutely.
I really don't.
I don't want to either, but
I
he
have
said it.
listened, I have listened quietly, and over 10 years, and it wasn't just me, it was many boards, it was many people who are passionate about building security. It is the public's trust that we got to support the financial obligation to hire this many people. It was the public's trust to have those people in schools, and one day after Parkland, to suddenly they appeared armed. Mr. Sismar had a part in that, as every other board member did. But every board member who is elected by the public has had a vote in what we did with security. Committee by itself, any committee, doesn't have any power. They make recommendations. That comes to me as superintendent. I pass that on to the board. Nothing can get done without the entire board voting on it. So that's where I have a misunderstanding, because every member of the committee is still a member of the committee. The committee has just expanded, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think there's a logistical issue that Mr. Sismar pointed out, and there's a disagreement on that. I'm okay with that. If you disagree, you disagree. I just simply rest on why. You really haven't heard why. You want everybody to do it. That's great. I like to think that Mr. Sismar and his committee had a lot more to contribute than what you're stating. However, all right, you say that they didn't. So I guess that's where we land. It's fine. I disagree with the decision,
No,
but it
no,
is what it
That's
is.
not true at all. You good.
Mr. Sismar.
Just one more thing real quick. Yeah, Dr. Valesky, it's not that it's making it less safe, like all of a sudden we're going to be in harm, but it's taking away options for timeliness. It's taking away a chairperson, and it doesn't have to be me, and I didn't ask for any, I didn't pat myself on the back tonight. Because I got a saying, if you're always patting yourself on the back, your hands aren't available to do the work. That's not what I'm doing here tonight. But the way it was structured as a committee is I would talk to Paul, I would talk to Dr. Valesky, I would talk to experts in the field. We would come up with an agenda. And in that agenda, we brought up things. And no, not everything that was brought to a security committee was brought to the full board. Because how a committee works, as we all know, is that the committee talks, experts talk, some things are put on the table, some things are taken off the table. And then it's honed down and it's presented to the full board. Nothing was ever kept from the full board. But there were things that do not pass the committee phase. So, like I said, I just think it takes away options for timeliness, and not for nothing, sorry, it bogs down the system, because we get, we have like an hour for closed session. We've had security meetings a lot longer than an hour. There were things that were brought in, and I don't even want to talk about, that were thrown off the table before they came to the full board, because they just weren't practical from several experts in the field, not just me. That's all I'm talking about. In form and function, it works better as a committee. So I think that encapsulates my whole point tonight. It works better as a committee, not executive session every time.
Point of clarification, give me 1 second. We are not held to 1 hour for our executive sessions. We do the 1 hour from 6:30 to 7:30. If there's a need for a second closed session, and most of you have been here, we've had that before. So I don't want anyone to think that we have 1 hour in which to get all the work done in executive session. There are times, like we've been here midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. So executive session can go as long as you need. It's just that a lot of times we can get the work done in that first hour.
My other question about chairperson and an agenda, are we going to have that going into the future?
I'm sorry, we're going to have what?
A chairperson and an agenda. The way a committee is
Committee of the
structured is
whole.
we have a chairperson that sets the agenda and brings the agenda to the committee. I asked before, who's the chairperson? I also asked, because we had a meeting tonight, there was no agenda. So again, my question is, form and function, going forward, since we didn't vote on as a board to move it in executive session, but it's there now, is there going to be a chairperson? Is that chairperson going to create an agenda? And then will that agenda be brought to the meeting?
I'm trying to think how to say it. Generally, Dr. Valesky brings us security.
I can create an agenda.
And so if you'd like him to do that for the agenda, because when we go into closed session, the items that are listed, so security, when it's on there, Dr. Valesky briefs us on what needs to be done. Do you want a formal agenda? Is that what you're asking for?
In a committee form,
I
yes.
understand.
I have dozens of agendas where, like I said, call it what you want. I talked to Paul, I talked to other experts in the field. I run security in another district. We come up with ideas. We put them on an agenda. And no, you don't have to meet every week or every month. But when new things come up, when new options come up, there's an agenda. There's a chairperson by our policy. These things are missing, no matter where it meets.
And as a new committee member, who do I address things to if I have a question? Who's my chairperson? Yep.
Well, what I can tell you is anybody on any committee, you can address it to the president, or you can go right to Dr. Valesky.
But there has to be a chairperson to the committee.
Well, so the day-to-day, if you, for example, if let's say, Mark, in the district that you're in, you come across something that's phenomenal, new software, or whatever, you have every right as a board member to call Dr. Valesky up and say, Dr. Valesky, I want an agenda item and I want this listed, so we can have this discussion in closed session.
I understand my rights,
Yeah.
Mr. Jacoby, just the form and function has been changed.
Right.
And, there's, a committee structure is a chairperson calls a meeting, chairperson sets agenda, and then basically kind of runs the meeting. So, has that all been removed?
Heather.
She doesn't want.
Are you asking me a question?
Yeah, because
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, our policy says there should be a chairperson. The chairperson
Yeah,
calls the meeting. The agenda is set basically by the chairperson in consultation with the person from administration who is assigned to the committee.
I think because it's going to be, if it operates as a committee of the whole, and it's in closed executive session, I would say that the chairperson is the person that runs the day-to-day operations, and that would be Dr. Valesky. So Dr. Valesky would act as the chairperson for security, and Dr. Valesky will make the decisions of whether or not to bring in Mr. Nataluccio, Mr. Zebra. So I think Dr. Valesky, because he's the quarterback doing it, he would act as the chairperson of the committee of the whole for security discussions. And so my recommendation to you guys is anybody who has a security issue that you want on an agenda, a discussion, if there's multiple items, contact Dr. Valesky, because remember, Dr. Valesky is the individual, along with the business office, that puts together the agenda every 2 weeks. They're the ones that create it. They're the ones who put together what's on executive, if it's a student matter, whatever, Dr. Valesky is the person to go to. And that would be and frankly, if there's something that's very pressing, Dr. Valesky is also the one, if there's a bona fide emergency, he can consult the board president and say, we need to have an emergency meeting with less than 48 hours' notice. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but I don't want to alarm people, but there could be a situation where, like I said, the President of the United States declares some type of national emergency, right after 9/11, code red. Yeah, that happens, that's a bona fide emergency. You can call an emergency meeting.
Mrs. Becker?
I think Mrs. Gaz had her hand up first.
Oh, yes.
Okay, sorry. I wasn't going to weigh in, but I do want to. I only have some concerns about the portrayal, as people have said, of what the committees do. I'm not comfortable with the reference, Mr. Sismar and his committee. It's a committee. Mr. Sismar, when he worked for the district, was doing that work. But now another district has the benefit of that, and we have hired, as a board, Dr. Valesky has chosen, we have approved, we have hired a substantial security force that is really well-led. And in my mind, I'm kind of listening to things as we go and answering what I think. When Mr. Winston says, if it's not broke, why change it? Well, it has been evolving for years and getting stronger and stronger. It was probably the strongest security in any school in New Jersey 3 years ago, but we have continued to grow and do more things that we can't share. But we have always improved. So using the entire board to weigh in and to handle, this information, I think is another change to improve. The other thing is that our role, as my understanding as board members, is to make sure the district is well-run. I have expertise, not in security, but I have expertise in curriculum writing. But I would never overstep and want to go work, like you said, you work hand in hand with Paul. And it's a different ground because you're friends, you have said. But I have expertise in writing curriculum, but I would never overstep to try to sit with Dr. Boley and tell her how we should write curriculum. Not our place as board members, I don't think. I think it's too up and close to the daily runnings of the district. I think as board members, our job during these meetings is to listen to what the experts are saying and ask intelligent questions. And that's where your expertise has always been so valuable. You know the questions to ask, which is a benefit to all of us. But I don't think we are supposed to be, as board members, running the district down on the ground. That's this man's job, and he does it beautifully. Our security department is amazing. But no one committee, I chair committees. I don't claim to be running, student services in any way, shape, or form. I'm there to ask intelligent questions with the other board members and understand what the people that the board and Dr. Valesky have chosen to run the district, what they're doing for our students, and make sure it's done well. But I'm uncomfortable with the public believing that our job is to run certain things. You have expertise, it's true. It is not my understanding that it is your job to run security in any way. It's our job to make sure that we have the best people to do that, and then to ask intelligent questions. I think that's all I wanted to say.
Excellent points, thank you. Oh, sorry, Mrs. Becker.
It's okay. I hate this phrase, but I've been on this board a long time, and I was never, ever told, either by a board attorney, by New Jersey School Board orientation, by the board members who mentored me, by any of the superintendents I worked with, that a board member is supposed to do research. As a matter of fact, I was always told, if you want to see research on a particular subject, you bring it to the superintendent, who will bring it to the appropriate administrator. Because as Heather so eloquently said, it's not Heather's job to do research if Dr. Bowley has informed us that she's thinking of a new science program for the elementary schools. It is not Heather's job because she is a teacher and curriculum expert to do the research to present to her. It's the other way around. Everyone has been saying this, but nobody seems to get it. We ensure the district is well-run. The fact that there is terrific security is because the board and administration have supported the funds and necessary personnel to develop a program, an agenda, a committee, a chairperson, number of times a meeting is held is not what has created this terrific security program. The security committee, actually, if I recall, the first year I was president was the first year we had security committee. And I viewed it as all other committees, as I think, Mark, you might have said. With the committee system, we get into the minutia of a particular subject. Because if all 9 of us had to be, for instance, if we go to a curriculum meeting and we get information about textbooks, the committee makes a recommendation to recommend the textbook to the board. But as I have pointed out a million times sitting on this committee and other committees, that doesn't mean the board will approve it. A committee is a place where ideas can be talked about, but that doesn't preclude it from being discussed at the board level. We once had a calendar committee meeting years ago that went on for hours and hours, where the people on this committee were led to believe that they needed to make a decision on certain days off the district was going to have, and I couldn't take it anymore. I said, I hate to see people wasting their time. We have spent hours discussing something that the full board can completely overturn. It is not up to the committee. The committee is a forum to discuss in minutia and detail. This district is not less safe, more safe because of a committee. This district's safety and security is dependent on the incredible program and staff that has been developed. And the security committee has been a terrific forum to listen to different ideas, to have different programs explained to us, different pieces of technology. But there was nothing in that committee that wouldn't have come to the full board. There is nothing in that committee that prevented the security becoming better. It is a committee. We used to have a technology committee. We used to have a transportation committee. The technology committee is now part of Building and Grounds, I believe, as is needed? Or technology, actually, I'm sorry. Technology is part of the Finance Committee, as is needed, and the transportation is part of Building and Grounds as needed. Does that mean that we halted any advances in technology or transportation? Or we no longer transport our children in a safe, efficient, incredibly state-of-the-art manner? Of course not. Decisions are made about logistics and the way things are formed. It's a frame. It's a format. It is not the content. It is not having or not having a technology committee doesn't mean that meets 2 or 3 times a year doesn't mean that we don't have a first-rate technology program. And I'm looking at the man in the back row who is responsible for it with his incredible staff and everything that has been done. Combining the technology committee with the finance committee as needed had no impact on the validity, efficiency, and security of our technology. We have been talking about security in this district since Columbine. It's not like nothing was ever done until 2013, no disrespect, or 2018. Mark and I have talked in meetings about prior to 2013, what Joanne Magistro did to develop security plans that were held up as a model in this state. But yes, Lori is absolutely right. It was finally under Dr. Valesky that we formalized a plan that is now not only recognized in the state, but recognized in the country. And it has nothing to do with a physical paper agenda. It has nothing to do with the name of a committee chairperson. Thank you.
No, I was done, but I just want to clarify Mrs. Guas's comments, because she kept saying and looking over here about running the district, running security. I made absolutely no statements that I ever, and Dr. Valesky can back me up on this, did I ever tell him how to run his district? Did I ever tell Paul how to run the district? It was in advisory capacity. Second, if you think I'm going to sit up here and not do my own research, I never knew that that was a rule, that people that oversee a $190 million budget are not supposed to do their own research? Well, how do you ask questions about something if you don't do some type of background research on the subject? And again, let me just, like I said, I'm not saying it's unsafe like tomorrow your children are unsafe. I said it, I think, very eloquently. District safety had civilians on there and stuff. There's stuff we couldn't talk about. That's why in 18, when I came on, I made the suggestion to create the security committee. And we still had district safety. We have it till today. It just didn't function as efficiently as district safety because you can't talk about stuff to the public. There was public that sat there on the committee. I've got the list from 13. So again, I will say because people are adding things in here that I never said tonight. It just functions better as a committee. That is my opinion, period. So all these little tangents that went off are not things that I said tonight. Thank you.
So
But I have to say that safety committee does function and has a tremendous
Lori,
impact.
Matt wanted to
I
say
understand that, but I just wanted, out of respect for Dr. Figueroa and that committee, it's a phenomenal committee. There are certain things that can't be discussed.
That's not what
but
I said.
please
Yes,
don't.
I did not say it
But-
wasn't a
but-
good committee.
But
I
it's an
said-
excellent
I said
committee.
we can't talk
because it
about
brings whole.
confidential matters. That was my issue.
Okay.
So we created an additional committee to safety. That's all. I didn't say
Oh,
they did
okay.
anything wrong.
No, I just wanted to make sure, because that's an absolutely essential committee.
Folk, board members can do their own research, but so if you want to educate yourself on certain items, that's fine. The bottom line, though, is the day-to-day operations comes from the administration. So I forget which board member said it, but like Dr. Boley, if Dr. Boley says, the science team at the high school is recommending Giacobbe on physics. It would not be appropriate for Ms. Becker, who's on the curriculum committee, I think you are, to go and say, no, not Giacobbe, I like Crutchfield on physics. You know what you're talking about. That's not appropriate. Can a board member educate themselves on why? Absolutely. So board members can absolutely, there's no prohibition or legal prohibition about educating yourself. Again, you make sure the district is well run. You don't run into the day-to-day operations. That's the law. And so what you do is you hire the best staff that you possibly can, whether it's a superintendent, whether it's somebody head of curriculum, head of security. they are the ones and you make recommendations to them, and they might say, no, you know what, that's not the right research. I just want everyone to understand that.
Thank you. Well, I think we've
Cool.
outdone ourselves this evening. I just noticed this lovely plant. Thank you for helping East Brunswick schools grow from the EVA. Thank you on behalf of the board, from truly the people that do help our students grow with the work that you do. So to be a part of that, I thank you. And Chris, I hope that you and your friends really enjoy the snow day tomorrow and build a lot of snowmen.
And
So-
think about swimming.
And think about swimming.
And being a
So,
lifeguard while you're playing in the snow.
I hope everyone gets home safe, stays safe, has your refrigerator stocked up, and I'm going to ask for a motion to.
So moved.
Jeff and Vicky, I don't know which one said it first.
Vicky Give it to said it. Jeff.
So you
No,
can
give it
pick.
to- give it to Jeff.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Good night, thank you so much.